Hi guys, it's Molly
and Shasta from
of School Shenanigans.
And today we want to share with you what we've learned about the human body. So over the last 2 weeks we've been doing a lot of work. We've created Dolly. This is Dolly, Molly's twin, which is a human body. And we want to share with you everything that we've learned. And we've learned a lot of what we have from the human body by this book called 100 Things to Know About the Human Body. And we watched some videos, hey Malls?
Yeah.
And I am a nurse practitioner, so I know a lot about the body. So this was super fun. So I'm going to show you some of the tools I use to look after people when they're sick and how I make sure that your body is healthy. And we're going to share some fun facts that we've learned. So let's start right from the head. So the meet Dolly. Dolly is pretty incredible, right?
Yes, she even has an earring.
Okay.
Just like me.
Just like Molly. She kind
I
of
have
looks
two.
She kind of looks like Molly. So let's start with, what did we learn? We learned that the brain is what of the body?
Is the boss of the body.
Yeah, it really is the control panel, right? And it communicates to the rest of the body through what, Molly?
The nervous system.
Yeah, and so we already did a video about the brain and we talked about all the different parts of the brain. But this is our nervous system, right? And they're very delicate nerves that are protected by what? Molly, what are these bones called?
Vertebrae.
Vertebrae. All these words are super, super big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to first share with you some fun facts. What was the fun facts we learned about hair, Molly?
Hair. So, did you know that I have more hair than
Somebody who is redhead?
redhead, brown, or black?
Yeah, so blondes have the most amount of strands of hair. So they have about 146,000 strands of hair, whereas a redhead has the least at 86,000. And for me, I'm not sure if I'd consider myself brown or black, but black hair is a little less than brown hair. So that was a pretty interesting fact that blondes have the most amount of hair on their head, right?
Yeah.
So then the next fun fact is we started learning about our senses, which I know you've already learned about, but we were learning about hearing. And what was the fun fact that we learned about the ear, Molly? What does it do?
It helps you balance.
Yeah.
So whenever you spin lots, it's because of the water that's splashing around in your ear too much.
Yeah. And sometimes older people can get something called crystals or stones in their ear, and it causes them to get dizzy, and we call that vertigo, and that's because there's like rocks in the water, sand in the water of their ears. Cool. So we're gonna show you how most people, they go to where to get their hearing tested, Molly? You go to
They go to the
hearing doctor.
doctor.
Yeah, but I can test people's hearing in my office, and I use a tool called a what, Molly? What's this?
A hearing fork.
Tuning fork.
Tuning fork.
So I'm going to show you how I'm going to test Molly's hearing. So Molly, we're going to move the camera down here. Why don't you sit down? So the first thing we do is we bang the tuning fork. And what I'm checking is not how good your hearing is. I'm actually just checking whether you can hear or not and whether you can hear in both ears. So the first test that I do is I hit the tuning fork on my hand and I put it on top of Molly's head. And now Molly, can you hear that in both of your ears?
Yes, it stopped.
It stopped. And did you hear it equally in both ears?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the next thing that I do is I'm going to tell whether you have, so there's two types of hearing loss. One is from listening to too loud of music or too loud of noise. So sometimes people who work around loud equipment for a long time can lose their hearing. But sometimes it's because the brain isn't working very well. So the way that I test the difference is I want to see if you can hear the air, the vibrations from the air, or if you can hear the vibrations from the bone. So when I put that on Molly's head, I was touching the bone on her head. So Molly, sit down, and we're going to see if she can hear the air vibration for the same length of time as she can hear the bone vibration. And then that tells me her hearing is normal. So We're going to put that here, and Molly, you tell me when you stop hearing it.
Stop.
And now we're going to put it here, and you tell me when it stops.
Stop.
Perfect. So Molly's hearing is really good because she can hear. So normally we would check both ears. So that's how I, in my office, check to see if you can hear. Isn't that cool? So the next thing that I do in my office sometimes, I think a lot of you, maybe you had a sore ear and you went to your doctor or your nurse practitioner and they looked in your ear. So sometimes I go and I look in your ear. And what am I looking at, Molly?
You're looking if there is wax blocking your eardrum.
Yeah, and so what I can see is your eardrum. I can't see behind your eardrum. I can't see your brain. I can't see through to the other side. I can't see those little bones that are there that help us hear. But what I'm looking at is the eardrum. And I'm seeing if it's red. I'm seeing if there's fluid behind there. Sometimes I see bubbles behind your eardrum. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And in old people, I'm looking for wax because then I have a tool and I take the wax out of their ears. Right, Molly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we learned about.
And also the bones in your ear, one of them goes smash, 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 and passes on the vibrations that you hear.
Right. Yeah. So sound is all about vibrations in air, right? And so then it hits the eardrum and the eardrum hits the little bones and the little bones trigger the nerves that tell our brain what we hear, which is really fascinating. So the next thing that we learned about were the eyes, and Molly knows a lot about the eyes. So this is Dolly's eye that we did.
Dolly's
Right? Dolly's eye.
Yes.
And, you know, when I'm looking at people's eyes, I'm just looking to see about the black part in their eyes, their pupil, to make sure that it closes and opens.
Yeah.
But we go to eye doctors, right? And the eye doctors can see at the back of our eye and make sure our eyes are healthy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And
So how do we see color, Molly? What?
so there are things called cones and rods. Rods, they focus on movement and shape. And the cones, they focus on color. So if you just stare at a picture with lots of color and then they change the picture to a black and white one, you can actually see color. But even though it's not there.
It's a bit of an optical illusion, hey?
Yes.
So we've been watching this series on the Disney Plus called Brain Games. And it's really neat because our brain plays tricks on us. And so we learned a lot about optical illusions, and that's all about the brain, but it's also about our eyes, right? So that's pretty cool. So the other thing we learned about is, for one of our senses, is our tongue, right? And Molly's going to share with you what we learned about the tongue.
In song. No, not really.
Okay, do you want to look at the camera and tell them?
So, bring it round all the way over here.
Okay, yep.
So, bitter, sour, sweet, salty,
Yeah.
and umami.
So those are the different types of taste buds.
And do you know how I remember umami? I say umami. Because it's very like umami.
Yeah, that's a great way to remember. So we need our taste buds to taste, but we need something else to taste. What do we need, Molly?
We need our nose.
Our nose, because if we can't smell, we can't taste. And we're going to come on later and we're going to do a little experiment with some Skittles. And we're going to get Molly to plug her nose.
And close my eyes.
And close her eyes, and we're going to see if she can actually taste it. Okay, so we're going to try that, which will be super fun.
And if I actually plug my nose and I still taste it, that is just amazing.
It is amazing. Okay, so when we eat something, we eat, right? And saliva comes from our cheeks and it gets everything wet, And where does it go, Molly?
The throat.
It goes to the throat all the way down to, what's that?
The stomach.
Yeah, so the stomach. And what's in the stomach, Molly?
The stomach acid.
Yeah, and so the acid mushes everything up into like a big slop, which goes into our intestines, right? And then our intestines do what, Molly? They absorb all the nutrients that we need. So we have this organ right here called the liver. Right here, do you see it? And the liver filters our blood, right?
Yes.
And it does a lot of things, but you know what is a really cool fact about the liver? What is it, Molly?
The cool fact about the liver is it regrows.
It's the only organ that can regrow itself. It's so cool. So it does quite a few things. Then we have this, what's this green thing, Molly?
The gallbladder.
Yeah, and the gallbladder, what does the gallbladder do?
If there's fat, it says, oh, there's fat. And then it sends some stuff.
Yeah, and it's called bile, right? So it sends some liquid to our stomach that helps to break down that fat, right? But can you live without a gallbladder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad, he got his gallbladder taken out.
Yeah, so lots of adults. We can live without a gallbladder. So then we have this here, this yellow organ. What is that, Molly?
It's called the pancreas.
Yeah, and what does the pancreas do, Molls?
The pancreas, I don't really remember.
You can't remember. It's hard to remember all this stuff, right? So the pancreas, what it does is it produces something called insulin, which helps us to take the sugar that we've eaten and put it into the cells. So when people have diabetes, their pancreas doesn't work so well. And the liver, you know what it does? It stores some of the sugar that we have into something called glucagon for when we are running or we are exercising or we're doing some hard work and we haven't eaten in a while, but we need some energy. Because did you know the only energy that our brain can use is sugar, right, Molly?
Yeah.
So it has to get some energy from somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So then what happens is as we're digesting, what happens to these things? What are these things? They're like little beans in our back.
They're kidneys.
And what do the kidneys do? They like recycle and filter our blood, right? And then they produce pee, right?
Yeah.
And the pee goes where?
Into the toilet.
No, into what?
Into
the bladder and then into the toilet. Yeah, exactly. And then there's this little blue, can you see this little, I'm going to try and see if the camera will see it. This little blue organ it's hiding way back in there. And that is called the what, Molly?
The spleen.
And it helps us with our immune system, right? So it works on, filtering our blood and giving us a army that can help protect us against a lot of things, right? So that's our body. So we're going to talk about our heart and our lungs next, but Molly, how many bones do we have in our body? We're born with 270, right?
Yes.
And then
we lose some of them.
We lose them only because some of those bones, they
smash into each other.
They get better.
Get bigger.
Yeah, they get bigger, right? And so then we have 207 bones. And where are most of them?
Most of them are in our hands.
And feet, right?
And feet.
Yeah, so...
And the smallest bone in our body is the one that is the fingertip.
Fingertip, yep.
And the reason why these are here is that, so they're like...
Joints.
They're like joints. These parts, they're like joints, and they go, they're by the joints. So then whenever you move your finger, it goes by these little lines.
Yeah, it can bend, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about our heart and our lungs. So when we think about the most important organs in our body, it's our brain and our heart and our lungs. So when we're really, really, really sick, our body really just focuses on our heart and our brain and our lungs. And so we are looking at, we made lungs out of two balloons, two bottles, straws, right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk about our lungs. So when we breathe in, what are we breathing in, Molly?
Oxygen.
And where do we get the oxygen from?
We get the oxygen from the plant.
Yeah. And then we breathe out what?
Carbon dioxide.
And who likes carbon dioxide?
Plants.
Plants breathe in the carbon dioxide, right? So we work together. And so our lungs, what are our lungs' job?
Our lungs' job is taking air from our nose and our mouth into there, and then filling up like a balloon, and then shriveling. And then it helps the blood, right, pick up oxygen. Right. So how do when you're going to come to the clinic and you're going to see a doctor or a nurse, they're going to pull out something called this. A telescope.
Stethoscope, right? And this is how I listen to your lungs, right? And I put these in my ears and then I can hear stuff. And so when I am listening to your lungs, I'm listening all over, right? And I'm listening for breathing in and breathing out. But I don't want to hear things like crackle, crackle, or wheezing, right? Because that means that there's something wrong with your lungs. So that's what I'm listening for, right?
Sometimes that happens to my nose.
Yeah.
It makes a weird sound.
It makes a little whistling sound, right? And then I listen to your heart, right? So our heart is on the left side. And so then I listen right here and I listen to your heart. And what does your heart sound like, Molly?
Lub dub, lub dub, lub dub, lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. So basically it's going top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom.
So yeah, our heart is not like a heart like this. It looks more like this. And when it squeezes, it's like the top and the bottom squeeze at different times to pump the blood, because it's a big pump. It's a big muscle. It's pumping the blood up from the body out to the body. So what are the vessels called that are bringing the blood that needs oxygen back to the heart?
Arteries and
veins.
Veins.
So veins are the blue ones that we see in our wrists, right?
Yep.
The oxygen in those don't have, or the
right here.
The blood in those ones don't have very much that doesn't have very much oxygen left. It's gone out to the body and delivered oxygen so that we have energy to be able to do a play and learn and do all the things we need to. And so it comes back to the heart through the left side, and then the heart pumps. It pushes that blood out of your heart, out of the right side of your heart, through arteries, right?
And your heart has 4 chambers.
4 chambers, yep. And so when you come and see me in my clinic and I want to check your heart and your lungs, I'm going to do a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to do is you might have one of these. I'm going to put one of these on your thumb or your finger, and it's going to tell me what, Molly?
It's going to tell you my blood pressure.
No.
My
heart rate,
and my
oxygen level. It tells me how much oxygen your blood is carrying, because if it's not carrying enough, you might be sick. So this is really neat because it's picking up a pulse in your thumb. It's going bub bub bub, just like your heartbeat. So you have to stay really still for this. And this is telling me Molly's heartbeat is It's telling me her oxygen level is 96 and her heartbeat is, it's not coming up right. It's coming up very low because we're moving around. So this is a tool that I use. And then the other tool that I use, right, Molly, is I check people's blood pressure. And I put this cuff on your arm and it gives your arm a great big hug. And I squeeze this. I squeeze this and I listen with my stethoscope. And what it does is it tells me your blood pressure. And what that tells me is if your heart is healthy.
Yeah. And we're going to show you how it really works.
No, we're not going to do that right now because that's an adult cuff. That's really big. So yeah, so that is how your heart and your lungs and your whole body works. So it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
So our body is an incredible machine. And I'm going to tell Molly, I don't think Molly knows this fact, but the biggest organ in our body and the biggest organ that protects us is, do you know what the answer? Do you want to take a guess? Do you guys want to guess at home?
The brain.
No, you know what it is?
What?
Our skin. Our skin is the biggest organ in our body, and it protects us from bacteria and viruses and things of getting sick, right? So when we have a scratch or a cut, you know, that's a break in our biggest armor. So our skin is our armor. Isn't that amazing?
What?
Okay.
Can I listen to my heart?
Yeah,
now?
Molly's going to listen to her heart. Okay, take care, guys. Do you want to say bye to everybody?
Bye.